Good evening from Washington. I'm Larry O'Connor, and all right, listen, you're forgiven if you watched last night's show on demand because you might have been watching former President Trump battle it out with Kaitlin Collins over on CNN. I get it. I mean, I was watching too. Let's face it, this was an epic evening of television, which is exactly what CNN wanted, and I guess it's what President Trump wanted too. I mean, in one fell swoop, we were all reminded with some nostalgia of what it was like to have President Trump on the national stage on a nightly basis. And yes, sometimes it can be taxing, but mostly it's pretty entertaining. And if you're a supporter of the president or his policies, it's actually pretty emboldening because you see him fighting for those ideas that you hold as well. And there's something to be said for that. Also, it was a pretty great political move because I doubt any of the challengers of Mr. Trump right now for the Republican nomination could undergo that kind of interrogation with that kind of intensity and that kind of hostility. Maybe, we'll see. I'm sure Vivek Ramaswamy and Nikki Haley and Asa Hutchinson, you know I've got Asa fever, are probably going to get the invite too. But here's the thing. I doubt the questioning will be quite the same. You see, for me, from my position, the big takeaway last night had to do with how the media conducts themselves in these events. You see, for some reason along the way, journalists have decided that they need to be combatants in the political arena, not just observers or reporters. In fact, reporter is actually the name of their profession, but they, of course, go well beyond just reporting what's going on. They actually engage, they become part of the story. And sadly, that's exactly what Kaitlin Collins did last night. Take a look at the questions she asked and the way she asked them.
Your polls show that you are dominating the Republican race right now, but you are also under active federal investigation for trying to overturn the 2020 election results. Your first term ended with a deadly riot at the Capitol, and you still have not publicly acknowledged the 2020 election results. Why should Americans put you back in the White House?
If you look at
Mr. President, back to what you just said there, though, it was not a rigged election. It was not a stolen election. Would you give Ukraine weapons and funding?
I was impeached by a crazy woman named Nancy Pelosi.
But the question here is, would you give Ukraine? When they went to the Capitol and they were breaking into the Capitol, smashing windows, injuring police officers, why did it take you 3 hours to tell them to go home?
I don't believe it did.
But on this issue, Mr. President, I should know, I don't know any Democrats who have said they don't believe Putin would have been invaded if you were president. But her question is, would you continue to give Ukraine money and weapons if you're elected? What's the answer?
So I happen to like,
yeah,
that's right. And I was totally exonerated, by the way, just a waste of time and money.
You were impeached over that.
It'll be absolutely
Do you
over.
want Ukraine to win this war? Mr. President, I have one more question for you here tonight. And I think while we're in front of the voters here in New Hampshire, this is a fundamental question for you. You are running in the 2024 race. If you are the Republican nominee and you are in that 2024 race, will you commit tonight to accepting the results of the 2024 election?
Yeah, if I think it's an honest election, absolutely, I would.
Will you commit to accepting the results of the election regardless of the outcome? Difference here that I'd like to note.
Reagan
the National Archives says that President Obama
even Jimmy
did not
Carter,
take documents.
even Mike Pence had some documents, and he's a very honorable guy.
You referenced
but you know
Biden.
who took them more than anybody is Joe Biden. He has 1,800 boxes, and nobody even knows where they are. 1,800, and nobody talks about him.
Mr. President,
and they put a rough guy on us, and they, in the meantime, they have nobody. I think it's important, Mr.
President, to actually set the record straight here. They took documents, including Vice President Pence. When they realized they had documents, they turned them back over. The difference is that you waited to turn yours over, and it was a year-and-a-half effort that included a subpoena with those documents. One question about what happened when you had those documents.
It included a raid on my house. That's what it included.
But you'd gotten a subpoena, and they had not been turned over yet.
By the Presidential Records Act, and we were negotiating with NARA.
That's not what it says,
and
Mr.
NARA
President.
has access.
This was a jury of 9 people who found you liable of sexual abuse. Do you think that will deter women from voting for you?
No, I don't think so, because
But that's the question that investigators have, I think, is why you held on to those documents when you knew the federal government was seeking them and then had given you a subpoena to return them.
Are you ready? Are you ready? Can I talk?
Yeah, what's the answer?
Do you mind?
I would like for you to answer the question.
Okay, it's very simple to answer.
That's why I asked it.
It's very simple to. You're a nasty person, I'll tell you.
Wow. You know, Currently in the United States of America, the average gas price is over $3.50. Where you live, it might be even more expensive. When President Trump was in charge, the gas price was around $2, even less in some places. The national debt is skyrocketing. Inflation has gone up double digits. Moms still can't find baby formula on the shelves. Eggs, I believe, cost about $4 a dozen last time I checked. We got some real problems in this country. We had a disastrous withdrawal from our military in Afghanistan. It resulted in the death of multiple members of the United States military. Recruitment is down in the military. We've got a disaster at the southern border, as you know. These are the things Republican voters care about, right? This is supposed to be a town hall for a Republican nominee for president, and none of the questions were actually the issues that Republicans care most about. All of those questions, honestly, weren't even issues that Democrats care about. They were the issues that the people in newsrooms care about. And that's a big part of the problem. Huge narrative today was Trump is still obsessed with the 2020 election. Trump is still obsessed with what he calls the rigged election. Is he really obsessed with it? Or is the media obsessed with Trump being obsessed with it? Something really telling happened in a little round panel discussion of average citizens right after CNN's extravaganza. It happened right on CNN, and it's incredibly noteworthy. Here, take a look.
Does it bother you that he keeps talking about 2020 and not 2024? I'll ask you first. This is Jonathan Leslie. He's 40, Republican, voted for Trump twice. How do you feel about those lies?
So I feel like part of it's also the media narrative, as you guys asked him the first question at the town hall about the 2020 election, rather than current stuff.
So don't you think he could say it's time for me to start talking about 2024 and not lies that aren't true?
Couldn't the media ask him a question about 2024?
Well, there were questions, but you're right. That was the first thing, but that's something that was on our mind. And that's why I was.
I love that. Does it bother you that he keeps talking about 2020? And just an average Joe says, well, you asked him about 2020. It was the first question and all of the follow-ups for at least 20 minutes. I mean, what do you want him to talk about? Now, listen, I would like Trump to learn the skill of answering the question quickly and then pivoting to something else that he wants to talk about. I do think he spends a little too much time, but for the media to now say, oh, he's just obsessed, he's obsessed, he's obsessed. They're obsessed. And then I just want to revisit one little clip here of Kaitlin Collins, because I think it tells you everything you need to know about how the media approaches the electoral process in this country. Here, watch again.
But that's the question that investigators have, I think, is why you held on to those documents when you knew the federal government was seeking them and then had given you a subpoena to return them.
Are you ready? Are you ready? Can I talk?
Yeah, what's the
mind?
answer?
Do you mind?
I would like for you to answer the question.
Okay, it's very simple to answer.
That's why I asked it.
It's very simple to. You're a nasty person, I'll tell you.
Now, first of all, saying you're a nasty person is funny, and it's Trumpy, and we should be used to it by now. It's probably not the language you would use or you want your children to use. Yes, yes, yes. But you should also know that at the end of the debate, Trump shook Kaitlin Collins' hand and said, great job, Kaitlin. That's just Trump. But guess what? In that exchange, she was rude. And she was trying to win an argument, and she was trying to get debating points, and she was trying to be celebrated for standing up to Trump. And that's all laudable, I suppose, if you're running against him in elections. But that's not her job. Her job is to report. Her job is to ask questions. Her job is to get answers. Her job is not to win the debate. And that's where she fell down, and CNN was a complete and total disaster. There's more to come on O'Connor Tonight.